All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports podcast. We're going to talk to Chris Perez one more time here as the baseball season winds down. Chris is two-time MLB All-Star, Cleveland Indians, St. Louis Cardinals, LA Dodgers. We're going to talk World Series sponsored by Glad garbage bags. No, just kidding. Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk World Series. What is Rob Thompson doing taking Zach Wheeler out after 70 pitches, man?
I don't know.
Learn it. What did these guys ever learn?
I think Smoltz said it best. Like, the more you see somebody in a series, the more you're on their pitches. And Jordan had already faced Alvarado before, so me personally, you got to ride and die with your best pitcher, and that's Wheeler. I mean, they hadn't given up anything all night. You just took the lead the inning before. Like, that's the shutdown inning. That's what Wheeler's your ace. I would ride and die with him. Obviously that's not what happened, and now they're at home.
I mean, just fans, if we'll just go back here a little bit. Game 6, Houston's down 1-0. Wheeler's in the game. The guy you're going to pay, $25 million a year to, and you bring in Alvarado to face Jordan Alvarez, and Alvarez hits a ball to the moon about 500 feet. Now it's 3-1, and then basically the game's basically over. But
Alvarado, he got brought into some tough situations in that series, but like you said, you're going to pay this guy Wheeler so much money. Like, let's leave the ball into his hands. Like let's see what he can do. He handled Alvarez all night already. But that's you got to tip your hat to Alvarez. That was I think it was the hardest pitch that he's ever homered on in his career. And straightaway center field. He just he started the playoffs with a bang and he ended it with a bang. In between, he didn't do much, but that's why the Astros. That's why they're pretty much a dynasty now. They just have so many guys that could beat you. Pena wins the MVP. Bregman had big hits all series. Altuve got going a little bit. Kyle Tucker had the big game 1, and he didn't really do much the rest of the series. But they just have so many guys that can win games for them.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, again, Jeremy Pena, everybody thought Correa leaving was going to be a big deal, and this guy Pena comes I don't say out of nowhere. I'm sure he's a good player and a prospect, but I mean, he's played really well. World Series MVP, and they're set up for more of a run here. I mean, most of their guys are younger guys. They don't have very much age on their team. One guy I want to give some love to that doesn't never seem to get a lot of love because he doesn't look like he's overpowering. Your guy, Presley, the closer. I mean, this guy just gets big out after big out. Everybody always thinks, oh, this guy's he's an okay closer. He's not a superstar closer. He just gets it done time after time.
He makes it so tough. Like, none of his pitches are straight. Like, he has such good control of his curveball and slider. And then, he still throws 95, 96, and it looks like 100 because he's been, slowing their bats down with the off-speed stuff. And, the moments never look too big for him. The Astros kind of played it the same way they've played it all year. Seventh inning was Hector Neris, and then 8th inning, that I forget his name, but
Abreu.
That guy came out of nowhere. I mean, he should be their closer, but then again, Presley has the experience and matches up both, righties and lefties. They're just a well put together team. They had guys in the bullpen that didn't even throw that Phillies could use. Like Ryan Stanek, who used to be the Rays. He didn't even throw in the World Series, and he's one of the best relievers in the game. Plus, Luis Garcia, the guy that threw 5 or 6 innings against the Mariners, and he didn't throw one time this World Series either. So, I mean, they're definitely set up for a multi-year run past what they've already done. It's just you got to tip your hat to the front office, especially after 2017 and 2018 they fired their GM. They fired, that's pretty much the guy that put all this stuff, Jeff Lunhow, put all this stuff together.
Right.
Minus the cheating scandal. That doesn't have anything to do with drafting a player or, he's the one that signed all these international pitchers. Yeah. Javier, Framber Valdez, all those. I think they said the 3 guys signed for $140,000 combined. Like,
God,
it's just like it's
scouting. It's scouting.
it's scouting and development, and all these guys, they said it all during the playoff or during the World Series. You know, these guys signed later in their life too. Like I think Framber Valdez was 21, maybe. Javier was like 19. Like they weren't 16-year-olds. So, I mean, hats off. They've put together a juggernaut over there.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Are you a supporter of that being a no hitter earlier in the series, or you think it's what are your thoughts on the combined no hitter?
It's a no hitter, right? They got no hits.
I agree.
I you know, it stinks that Javier's pitch count was so high and he couldn't try to finish it out himself. But I mean, the game's changed. You know, this is the way we play now. I don't think there was one complete game all postseason. And you know, you go back into the 50s and 60s, the Brooklyn Dodgers and the old Yankee teams. I mean, every game was a complete game pretty much. So it's just the way we are in today's game. You know, it's a no hitter. I know the Phillies, they weren't feeling good after the game. Nobody could be feeling good. Only 2 guys got on base, and it's only the third time in playoff history, second time in World Series.
Yep.
Larson still has the best though, because it was a perfect game. So,
yep.
You know, that's I couldn't imagine just that. You know, that happened so long ago. Obviously, I wasn't alive, but you know, I don't know if you'll ever see one again, a perfect game. That's in the World Series, just with the pressure and the way the media is, and it's just it's a different animal nowadays.
And I think they would have let Javier keep going had they not thought they might need him in Game 7, because I think they took him out because he would be available in Game 7. Had that been a later in the series or a regular season game, they would have let him keep going. I think
so too. And he had thrown I think he threw 7 no-hit innings in the combined no-hitter they had in New York earlier in the year. So he had some experience, you know, dealing with that kind of pitch-to-pitch pressure. You know, it's not, you know, the game was kind of out of hand, but you still feel that pressure as a pitcher because it is something special. You're not there every day, you know, especially in the playoffs. So he had some experience with that. And I mean, going into next year, you got to think he's going to throw one for sure. I mean, his stuff is just, you know, sometimes you get in the groove and you get into like this kind of, you know, zone, as they say. But, you know, he really doesn't do anything special. I mean, he does, but like he's not doing anything that he can't replicate next year. Like his mechanics are great, his arm looks great. Now he has the success that go behind it, and the way he is, like I don't think he showed any emotion. So like yeah, he's a bona fide ace, and with Verlander being a free agent, you know, maybe let him go. You know, like he is getting up in age.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got a lot of options for sure.
So when you're warming up in warm-ups, you're, you know, getting loose before the game. I know you're more of a closer, so you're more quicker. But when you were a starter, how did you know, hey man, I got great stuff today, or I can't. What is that feeling that you just don't have the snap on the ball? What is that feeling that you know I got great stuff today, or I don't have much?
It's that's a funny question because it's a flip of a coin. Sometimes when pitchers come back from the bullpen and like they made every pitch and they threw it exactly where they want, they're like, oh boy, you know, like what's going to happen when I go out in the field? And then the other side is when you have the bad warm-up session and you can't throw a strike to save your life, you're like, well, you know, it's going to be good out there. You know, I think it's more of, obviously your body has a lot to do with it. Some nights it just comes out free and easy and it feels like you could throw, you know, 10 innings and have no problems. Other nights, you know, your shoulder's a little creaky, they're a little more stiff, or a lot of it goes into it. I think for me personally, the first pitch of the at bat of my first, you know, the first pitch of the outing told me a lot. If you know, if it came out free, and I would actually look at the velocity, not to see how hard I was throwing, just to see like, all right, tonight I got it. You know, I got my good stuff tonight. Because sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes you know, you think you got your good stuff, and it just doesn't have the same you know, finish on it or carry, and that affects how you pitch. You know, if you're a guy that tries to blow somebody away up top and you don't have that extra zip, well, maybe tonight you throw the slider a little bit more. You know, those guys though, I mean. And that kind of like I've never been in that stage on the playoffs. They're so focused probably that, I mean, it's much rare to have one of those outings where you can't throw a strike, you can't get out of the first inning. It happens, but you know, in the World Series, it seems like in the World Series the pitchers always bring their A game, and it is, you know, the best of the best. They've you know, gotten there for a reason. But yeah, for me it was the first pitch, the first batter. Starters. Like I said, some of them, they want to have a bad bullpen because it changes completely when you get out into the field. You know, the adrenaline, the backdrop even. Some starters wouldn't leave the bullpen until they got all their pitches working, right. and I never understood that because it is most of the bullpens are facing completely different directions than when you come into the field, especially like Philadelphia, they're out in center field,
right.
Going horizontal, then you go out into the field, you're facing a completely different direction. So I didn't put too much onus on my results in the bullpen. I just wanted to know how I felt.
Talk real quick, and then we'll move on. Last thing, how challenging is it to throw to a backdrop when you have such a huge crowd in front of you? You've come from the mound, thrown into home plate. And some of these places are so gigantic as far as the layout of the stadium. What is that depth perception like as opposed to like a bullpen?
Oh, it changes big time. That's why home field advantage is and being a veteran is an advantage because even in spring training, some of those new stadiums, they have the backdrop that goes all the way down to the ground. There's no advertising or anything behind it. It's hard to pick up. It's hard to pick up your target sometimes if you're checking a runner at second, and you're looking at second, and then you spin real fast. It's hard to pick up your catcher. And not to mention sometimes white shirts and stuff. It is a big difference. Luckily in the big leagues, most of the fields are pretty uniform back there. They have the distance between the seats is always different, but usually the backdrop's usually pretty good for the pitcher. Some fields like Fenway stands out in my mind. It doesn't feel like so much as a mound because they have it's built up along the way. So the grass around the mound is higher. So when you're on top of on the mound, it's the same height, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like you're kind of throwing uphill a little bit.
Okay.
And then other stadiums, I'm trying to think of one that had really bad optics. Like Dodger Stadium it just felt like you could place the ball right in the catcher's glove. I don't know, for some reason, the way their backdrop is, it feels like you're 55 feet away. So every stadium is different for sure.
Houston a dynasty, or do they have to win another? Do they have to win another title outside of the scandal this one in 2017?
I think it's definitely a 2-chapter dynasty.
Okay.
It's some of the same players, but it's definitely a different pitching staff. But I mean, they've been the 6 straight ALCSs, so
right.
I don't think that they had their one down year in 2020 where they barely won the West. They still made it to the ALCS, and they gave the Rays everything they could handle. So I mean, it's definitely a dynasty. Like I said, it's a 2-chapter dynasty because now Dusty Baker's here this chapter. AJ Hinch was there before, but I mean, they're definitely a dynasty. Kind of like if you look back in the early 90s or the mid 90s Braves.
Yeah, right.
The Braves didn't have the scandals and stuff, but a cast of great players, a lot of Hall of Famers on that Braves team. There's a couple of future Hall of Famers, I think, here on Houston. So it's kind of amazing how they've done it, actually, because like I said, when you lose your GM and the guy that's in charge of scouting, Lou Howe he ran the show over there. And then to make those free agent decisions, let Springer walk, let Correa walk.
Yeah.
And then to not miss a beat and actually be better than ever, I think. It's remarkable, really.
No, I agree. I mean, they have good. They don't have a all-timer great. That's the weird thing. Alvarez was a guy they got in a meeting, kind of a throw-in trade guy. I mean, these weren't guys. I mean, Bregman was kind of a guy that you thought was going to be really good, but they don't have the Ken Griffey. They don't have a Trout kind of guy. They just got a bunch of really, really good players.
And they look like they have fun playing together. That's right. And that has a lot to do with it too. It looks like all the pitchers, those Latin pitchers, they all seem to feed off of each other and help each other and actually want the other person to succeed more than they do, and it shows. And they have fun. And I mean, you saw Fromberg coming out of the dugout as soon as Alvarez hit that home run. He was the first one out. So they all get along great, it looks like. And the best player on the team, credential wise, is Verlander. And he missed all of last year, but he still provides pretty good leadership for those young pitchers. So they've got a lot going on, and they're going to add a couple pieces here in the offseason probably. They're going to spend some money, and they got those young guys that, like I said, Luis Garcia didn't even pitch in the World Series, and
he'd be a number 2 or 3 guy for a lot of teams.
The Phillies, for the Phillies for sure, yeah. So they definitely got a lot of options. I don't know what the status is of their bullpen, but I mean, with Abreu and Presley, like it seems like those kind of guys aren't going to be going anywhere. So they should be making a run for it again next year.
Did you have a piece of the $75 million that the mattress guy won?
Right. I mean, he had the best World Series, I think.
Yeah, right.
I want to know how much of that he's letting it ride for next year.
That's right. Those of you that don't know, there's a furniture guy in Houston, a business owner. He always makes these huge bets, and this year he won $75 million on his action on the Astros.
Yeah, he had better odds than I got. He was betting all year. He was betting all season. Right. Yeah, he it's funny, because he has to pay taxes on the winnings, right? So I want to know if he comes out on top every year. I know he said he sold like $50 million worth of furniture, but you have to pay taxes on that too. So
he'll be okay. I'd be willing to bet he's gonna be okay.
Yeah, he's like that guy, the Marlins man that goes all around the country and sits behind home plate and has the Marlins jersey on. Like he's just spending he's spending his money the way he wants to.
And another guy you got to be happy for, Edwin Diaz, just got 5 years and $100 million from the Mets.
Yeah,
I'm shocked they gave him that much time, that many years as a closer, kind of, because I mean, it can come and go quick. And I know he had a great year and he's had a good couple years for the Mets, but to commit 5 years and $100 million, that's a big number.
It's a big commitment. It kind of shows. They're kind of rewarding him. I mean, he had a great year. They don't finish where they are this year without him. The fans love him now with his entrance music and everything. He's become like a spectacle. So, I don't know what the market is, or I don't know who they're bidding against, but yeah, I mean, 5 years is a long time for a reliever. You can't expect him to be at that top of the level for that long. I mean, it's just so year to year. Like I said, some years you just come into the year and you're not the same. Like this year he was obviously in a great groove and they were using him right. And he was, they had a good team, so he's throwing every other night pretty much. So you just hope that you can bottle up that feeling and bring it over to next season.
How easy is it as an athlete to know that you got a little guaranteed money, that you got some guarantee in your life, that some stability, that you're not having to, I won't say pitch for your dinner every night, but that somebody's got confidence in you and that you're going to be around for a little while?
It helps out a lot. I mean, our especially pitching side, you're one or two pitches away from maybe being done forever with injuries. So it's nice having that guaranteed locked in. At the same time, you hope it doesn't take that edge off. Like some guys pitch better with having that kind of pressure hanging over them. And now during the off season, you're like, do I do that extra workout? Just, I got a 5-year contract, I'm not going anywhere. Do I, throw that extra bullpen? It's just, it changes some guys' mentalities. The great ones are the ones that just play and get paid on the side. They don't worry about the contract. They don't change anything up. And that's why they're the great ones.
Now that the season's over for everybody, how long does the average guy take off and they do nothing as far as baseball activities? Do you guys take a month off? Do you keep doing some cardio stuff? How long before you start doing stuff with your arm again?
Everybody's different. If you're coming off an injury or something, obviously that's going to change your schedule. I would always take the whole month. I never played deep into the playoffs, so I was always home around October at the beginning. So I would take all of October and November off, and then start playing catch and working out and moving again in December. And then January, definitely like 2 days and definitely throwing every day on a throwing program. The older you get, you kind of get your own routine and how your body feels and how it reacts. So like I said, I'm sure there's some guys that are on the Phillies that are working out today. Just that's how they're, if it's, it's not like heavy powerlifting, but it's like, recovery, working on some injuries, maybe straightening a shoulder or something. Yeah, there's some guys don't take off any days. Some of those Latin guys go straight to Dominican and start playing winter ball. So everybody's different and everybody stays in shape differently.
Cool. Interesting. All right, listen to Chris Perez, two-time MLB All-Star closer. I'm Jason. Powers on Sports Podcast brought to you by Beef O'Brady's over here in Carrollwood, Forest Hills, Bush Boulevard, and Himes Avenue here in the Tampa Bay area. Definitely stop by Beast for all of your sports watching, viewing pleasures over the weekend. Every day, really. They got stuff going on every single day over there and do a great job. All right, I want to ask you about Kyrie Irving. You obviously had his comments he made, the stand he took and supporting of the anti-Semitism film that was out and all that stuff. His refusal to apologize. He then gets suspended by the Nets, which I think was absolutely deserved. Just how is it when there's a controversial topic in a locker room or a dugout and somebody's involved? How do the teammates handle that kind of stuff when there's something that's kind of controversial going on with another guy?
That's a tough one. That's especially that one. Usually, me personally, I mean, I would just let it not affect me. I mean, it doesn't have any kind of bearing on I'm gonna do on the court or the field that night. The only thing you have to deal with is more questions from the media about it. But I mean, if it's a guy that you're kind of close to, you definitely want to talk to him and see what's going on. Unfortunately, Kyrie's been doing this for a couple of years now, so maybe not to this extent, but he's been a sideshow for a couple of seasons now. So if you're on that team, you're pretty much used to it. Probably it doesn't help. It's definitely a distraction. Every coach, that's what they want to eliminate is distractions, because there's enough that come up during the season, injuries and stuff like that. But you just, like I said, me personally, you're a professional. You still have a job to do that night. What Kyrie says isn't going to affect my play on the court.
Right.
It sucks that he got suspended as a teammate, because as a team they're better with him on the court. And it's just a couple more questions that you're gonna have to answer from the media, pretty much. I mean, now you have to go over what you're gonna say, so you don't want to distance yourself too far from Kyrie. He's still your teammate and everything, and everybody's entitled to their views. But at the same time, you don't want to be associated with that kind of stuff. So It's a fine line. And the easiest thing is just to kind of give the cliche answers and say, I'm here to support him as a teammate. I don't agree with what he said, that kind of stuff.
At some point, if you're close to a guy like that or a teammate that's really out to one extreme or the other, do you say, "Hey, bro, what are you doing, man? Come on, you got to realize what's going on here. You're ruining your career." I mean, that kind of talk about career and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. If you've been around him for a couple seasons and you feel like you're friends, if you know him, that's where it gets kind of shady though, because if it's your first or second year on the team and you don't really know him that well, even if you're a veteran or whatever, it's really not your place to step in. That's, you would hope to. I don't know. It's a tough situation. Me personally, like I said, baseball is a little more different than basketball. Basketball has a lot more downtime. They don't play every day, so they got practice and you got days off and stuff like that. Baseball, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. If he's not on the team and he's not on this road trip, like he's back at Cleveland doing whatever he wants or wherever he's at, like that doesn't affect us. Basketball is a little different. It's a little closer knit. There's only 12 guys on a team, but at that stage, most of those guys should have been used to distractions already. I mean,
he's a circus, man.
Yeah, he is. And you're playing. I think he's still with Brooklyn, right? Like, I mean, the New York media, and they're used to pretty much anything, really. So it's more of a distraction, and the coach has to spend time on it now, and so it's just not a good situation.
All right, what you think of the college football playoff came out on Tuesday night? Georgia clearly number one now, thumping Tennessee. You got Michigan, Ohio State, TCU.
Yeah, obviously Michigan, Ohio State's going to play each other anyway, so they're going to take care of each other. TCU's got a tough 2 weeks now at Texas, at Baylor. I think
it's a good story. That'd be a good story. Kind of the little guy. I know TCU's not a little guy, but nobody thought they were going to be any good this year. A lot of people thought they'd be 6th or 7th in their conference. They're kind of on a miracle run here. They keep winning close games. That'd be a cool story if they could get the last couple.
I just don't think. I don't know if they're going to get past this week. I mean, everybody keeps doubting them. Texas is favored this week. That kind of throws a question mark up to me to that game. But yeah, I mean, I think the playoffs looked like what they should. Ohio State had a rough game in Northwestern, but it was, it's weather, it was windy, and they still won. They're undefeated. It's all going to play out. I mean, My question is the SEC still. So like, all right, so LSU wins out during the SEC title game with 2 losses, and one of those losses was to
Tennessee killed them.
A 1-loss Tennessee team right now. So like if you took away the names of the schools and you just looked at the resumes, so you got LSU with 2 losses, one of them against a top 10 team, and then you'll have if they beat Georgia, and which is a big if. I mean, they still have to.
Right.
It's a big if. Georgia hasn't lost to anybody, and they have 2. They beat Oregon and they beat Tennessee. I mean, I like chaos. I like chaos. I think there's a way for a 2-loss SEC team to get in.
I think if LSU runs the table, they're in. I think if they win the rest of them, they're in.
I think so too. Even with a 1-loss Pac-12 team.
Yep.
I think their strength of schedule, even with the early loss to FSU, who's better than people thought, they're ranked now. Yeah, I think a 2-loss. I think if Georgia makes it to the SEC championship game and loses, I think they still make it in too.
I agree.
So now, then you might have a 1-loss Tennessee team sitting there whose only loss is to the number 1 team, Georgia, and they might not get in over a 2-loss LSU. It's just.
And then you might have a 1-loss Oregon team who runs the table, and their only loss is to Georgia.
And then you might have an undefeated TCU team sitting there. So, like, how would you lead if TCU runs the table and LSU runs the table? So you'll have a 1-loss Georgia, a 2-loss LSU, a no-loss TCU, a 1-loss Tennessee, and a 1-loss Oregon, maybe.
And then Michigan, Ohio State will be undefeated, probably.
It's good. I mean, they've already voted to expand the playoffs. So, I mean, this it's going to be fun. I think all that can happen. I can see Tennessee running the table. I don't know if LSU is going to run the table.
Right. That's the wild card. They're the wild card. They're the chaos, but they're the chaos creators, LSU.
They are. And if Georgia beats LSU, they're by far they've played everybody almost. Like they have to be the favorites going into the playoff for sure.
You got
if they beat LSU, yeah. It's crazy. It's 18, 19, 20-year-olds. You never know what's going to happen.
You're right. You're right about that, man. You are right about that. Well, Chris Perez, appreciate the time this week, man. We'll definitely have you on as we go through the offseason and the winter meetings, stuff like that. If we got any big baseball news, and Chris can talk any sport, so we'll have Chris on again because he does a great job. He can talk it all. As we get closer to the playoff, we'll have him back on, and we'll talk a little NFL as well. So appreciate the time, Chris, and have a great week, man.
Thanks for having me. Anytime. I can talk pretty much all sports, so I love it.
You got it, man. All right. See you, buddy.
All right. Thanks.